For many long years, one mysterious and tragic story haunted all of Europe. It was full of secrets, contradictions, and unanswered questions. It seemed that the truth about this story would remain a mystery forever. But one day, after 16 years of silence and hopelessness, something completely incredible happened. The veil of secrecy was suddenly torn apart, revealing a shocking truth that no one expected. Everything begins with the couple Angelique Tegmeyer and Edwin van den Hurk. The pair met in 1978. By that time, Edwin had already been married once and had a 2-year-old son named Andy. Little is known about Angelique's past. As for Edwin, he was a popular singer in the Netherlands. By 1980, Edwin and Angelique's relationship had led to marriage. In the same year, the couple had a daughter named Nicole. A year later, Angelique confessed to Edwin that he was not the biological father of the girl. However, despite this, he adopted Nicole. In 1988, Edwin and Angelique's relationship fell apart. The woman had mental health issues. Therefore, Edwin, even though he was not the girl's biological father, insisted in court that custody of Nicole after the divorce be given to him. In the end, the court sided with him, and after the divorce, Nicole remained living with her stepfather and half-brother. Of course, she often saw her mother, but unfortunately, her mother's mental illness only progressed. In 1995, Edwin married for the 3rd time to a woman named Yolanda. His ex-wife and Nicole's mother, Angelique, could not come to terms with this fact and ultimately took her own life. Of course, this was a heavy blow for Nicole. During this difficult time, her half-brother Andy provided her with special support. From this moment, the key part of the story begins. In 1995, Nicole was already 15 years old. She was studying at school and working part-time at one of the Can More bakery chain locations. October 6th, 1995 seemed like an ordinary day. After school, Nicole went home to her grandmother, as usual, to prepare for work. She took her keys, purse, and rode her bicycle to the bakery. In her employer's eyes, she was a responsible girl. She never arrived late for work. But this day turned out to be far from ordinary. 15 minutes after the start of her shift, Nicole still hadn't arrived. The bakery owner called home, but they were sure she was already at work. This, of course, caused great anxiety. Nicole's stepfather called the police. The police questioned possible witnesses, but that day no one had seen a girl resembling Nicole. About an hour into the search, something important was found. During the search, the police quickly managed to discover Nicole's bicycle. It had been abandoned on the bank of the Dommel River. Such a find clearly did not inspire optimism. There were no other traces of the girl anywhere. Near the place where the bicycle was found, divers were deployed. They tried to find her in the dark, murky waters of the river, but fortunately, she was not there. The police were at a loss. It was as if the girl had vanished without a trace. No one had the slightest idea where to look for her. In hopes of finding at least some leads, detectives questioned the missing girl's relatives and friends. This allowed them to learn that Nicole's biological father lived in Germany, and that her mother had recently died. This information somewhat loosened the police's grip. As a version emerged, Nicole had run away from home to reunite with her biological father. However, the biological father refuted this assumption. Over the next 2 weeks, the searches yielded no results. Nicole's stepfather mercilessly criticized the police, accusing them of not doing enough for the search. In desperation, he even turned to a psychic. The psychic said that the search should be conducted along the riverbank, the very one where the bicycle was found. Then, on October 13th, 13 days after the disappearance, the police received another solid piece of evidence. That day, Nicole's purse was found on the bank of the Dommel River. This was a new lead. Nothing was missing from the purse, which made the situation even stranger. After searching the riverbed again, the police definitively ruled out the version that Nicole had drowned. Over the next 5 weeks, the story of Nicole's disappearance was shown on several major channels. Information about her search appeared several times on the front pages of leading Eindhoven newspapers, but none of this brought results. Then, on November 22nd, on the 47th day of the search, an answer was received to the main question of this case. On November 22nd, 1995, 10 kilometers from Nicole's home, a tourist discovered human remains in the forest. The examination confirmed that they belonged to Nicole van den Hurk. She had several serious head wounds, her lower jaw was broken, and there was also a knife wound to the chest. Experts concluded that the cause of death was internal bleeding. Now, one important question was replaced by another, no less important. Who was responsible for her death? But here, too, the police had almost no leads. Only on February 8, 1996, 10 weeks after the body was discovered, did the police have a lead. That day, a woman from Eindhoven, arrested in the USA for drug smuggling, reported that she knew who was responsible for Nicole's death. She named a name familiar to the police. The woman said that Nicole, like her, had been involved in drug trafficking, and that this had allegedly caused her death. But the police found no confirmation of this, and considered that the woman had made up the story to achieve extradition to the Netherlands. In the end, Nicole's stepfather and brother were arrested, but after spending 4 days in custody, they were released because the police had no serious evidence against them. Week after week, month after month, the case did not move forward. Soon it ended up on the archive shelves of the police. It lay there for 9 years. In 2005, the case was reopened again, but not for long. No new evidence was found again. So Nicole's case was sent back to the archive for the second time, until something shocking happened. On March 8, 2011, after long 16 years since the girl's death, her brother Andy posted on Facebook, "Today I will be arrested in the case of Nicole's murder. I have confessed. I will contact you soon." Those around him were stunned by this message. For 16 long years, the perpetrator had literally been right under the police's nose. But all that time, no one had been able to connect such a close person to the girl's death. At the time when Andy revealed his secret to the world, he was living in England. On the same day, he was arrested. He spent another 3 weeks in England and was extradited to his homeland, the Netherlands. There, the local police were already waiting for him, who reopened the investigation into the case that had seemed it would never be solved. Andy, the brother of the murdered Nicole, was brought to the Netherlands on March 30th, 2011. But despite his sincere confession, for some reason the man stopped cooperating with the police on this case. He could not describe either the circumstances under which the crime was committed or clearly explain the motive. In many countries around the world, a voluntary confession is not sufficient grounds for convicting a person. If there are no other pieces of evidence besides the confession, such a person cannot be convicted. This legal norm also applies in the Netherlands. As a result, on April 5th, despite the confession, Andy was released. However, he still did not calm down, as if he had some stone on his soul that needed to be gotten rid of. Perhaps his next confession was an attempt to drop that stone. Right on the day of his release, Andy revealed who the real killer of Nicole was. It was their father, Edwin. Andy revealed that his father had been hiding a terrible secret. After Nicole's mother passed away, her stepfather became involved in something gravely wrong with the young teenager, and somehow managed to convince her to keep silent about it. However, she soon became pregnant as a result, and the man, terrified that the birth of the child would expose his crime, ultimately decided to take her life to prevent the truth from coming out. The accused, Edwin, denied that this was the case. However, it was obvious. It would be strange to hear such accusations against a father if they had no basis. In an attempt to establish the truth, the police decided to exhume Nicole's body to send it for in-depth medical examination. No one could have imagined at the time how this case would end. The examination showed that DNA from the sperm of 2 people was found on Nicole's body. One of them was her boyfriend, which, in principle, is nothing strange. The identity of the other person remained unknown. It was only clear that this person was neither her brother Andy nor her stepfather. It was likely that this unknown person was Nicole's killer. But here a question arises. What was the point of the brothers' confessions? Why did he first confess to the murder himself and then accuse his father of it? In an interview, the guy himself answered this question. Andy believed that his sister's case required a review. After all, over the 16 years since her death, technology had advanced far. What seemed useless in 1995 could now, upon re-examination of the body, help establish the truth. With his confessions, he tried to achieve the police reopening the case, examining Nicole's body, or trying to find new leads. For this, he even had to slander his father. The guy knew that his father was innocent, so he understood that this would not threaten him with anything serious. However, it was this that left the police no choice. The authorities were forced to send the body for a re-examination. Andy's efforts ultimately turned out not to be in vain. In 2012, the police finally managed to establish the identity of the man whose sperm was found in Nicole's body. This person turned out to be a man named Jos de G. At the time of Nicole's death, he was 28 years old. In 2012, he had already been convicted several times, once for beating his girlfriend, and a second time for raping a lone girl riding a bicycle, which is very similar to Nicole's case. In addition, he had spent 5 years in a psychiatric clinic. Now he became the main suspect in the rape and murder of Nicole Vandenhurk. The trial of the then 48-year-old man began in 2015. His lawyer insisted that the found traces of sperm only proved that the accused had had sex with Nicole. This does not prove either rape, let alone murder. A more detailed examination showed that in addition to sperm, other traces of the accused's DNA were found on the body and clothing of the murdered girl. The prosecutor requested 16 years in prison for him, followed by treatment in a psychiatric clinic. But the court found Jos de G not guilty of Nicole's death and sentenced him only to 5 years for rape. This caused complete outrage in the courtroom. The murdered girl's family was devastated by such a verdict. Many considered it too lenient. However, in 2018, the prosecutor managed to achieve a review of the case. This time, the accused was found guilty not only of rape, but also of Nicole's death, manslaughter. He was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Everything that was possible to learn and prove in this case became possible only thanks to the perseverance and incredible courage of one person, Nicole's brother. 16 long years of pain, guilt, and memories passed, but he could not come to terms with the injustice. Andy took an extreme step. He lied to the police, slandered his father, subjected himself to arrest, just to force the system to reopen the old case and apply new technologies. His sacrifice was not in vain. Thanks to him, the killer was found and punished, and Nicole Vanden Hurk's story finally received at least some semblance of justice.